Use it or lose it. Welcome back. In this chapter, we're going to focus on finding ways to manage your work through Excel. And this includes ways that either can expand your type of functionality within Excel to do things like create lists and other things that you might not have already tried in some of the work you may have done in between tutorials we've worked with, as well as to save you time. But why, you might ask, have I called this particular tutorial Use It or Lose It? Simple. Ever find yourself going through a period of time when you decide, okay, this is the moment I'm going to get organized. Put all my most needed data into one central location so I can update it and refer back to it quickly and cleanly. Sure you have. We all have. However, most of us by nature are not good at following through with this concept. For example, several years ago, every December 31st I would create a new worksheet, and I told myself I was going to faithfully put down every expense just as they occurred, so that I would have a record of it and I wouldn't have to go hunting receipts at tax time. Of course, probably by January 15th I was no longer updating it, so I would get closer and closer to tax time and I would notice that now instead of updating a day's or a week's income and expenses, I suddenly had to update 3.5 months worth of data, and that just made no sense. It really makes sense to actually get in there and use it on a regular basis, especially the more important a workbook is to you. However, as I said, most of us are not good at following through with this concept, so I really do encourage you to make the investment and time necessary to keep your Excel work updated, even if it's just your home budget. The more time you put into it, the more useful it becomes, and the more inclined you'll be to keep the update process moving along. And you'll find that it's a lot easier to update a day's worth of material or even a week's worth of material than it is to get 3 or 4 or 5 months behind and then have to sit through a very long session of loading in data that could have been accomplished far more easily if you'd just done it as you went along. Here's another thing that might be useful to you. Did you know that you can grab data from Excel and pop it into some of the most popular tax preparation packages? This could save you serious time during tax season, especially if you have a business that requires quarterly tax returns. There's one more thing I want to discuss here, and it's a concept I discussed with you early on. Keep extra copies of your important Excel worksheets and workbooks stored elsewhere, on another drive, recorded onto a recordable CD or DVD, or anywhere but the drive where Excel and your main files are normally located. Update these copies as often as you update your worksheets and workbooks. This reduces your risk if you have a serious PC problem or other type of disaster that may damage or destroy the contents of your main drive. Now, if you perform regular backups of your drive, that's great, you're covered. But if you don't, you should at least copy these important files to another location to protect them. After all, you don't want to start from scratch. That's a far tougher proposition than simply updating your data as needed. One thing some people do, just as an interim thing in between backups or in between major, copying of lots of different files, is to automatically save 2 different copies of their work. One to their main location where Excel is installed, and the other one to a second location on another drive, for example. To do this, for example, with this worksheet, we would click File, Save to save it normally, or we could click Control plus S on our keyboards and accomplish the same thing. Now we'll go back to the File menu and choose Save As. Now we're going to select a different drive. Normally, the documents on my drive are stored on my C drive in my main documents folder. However, I want to make an extra copy, so I'm going to choose my D drive and store it somewhere else, for example, in a special backup folder I have, and I could save it here and then click Save. This way I've saved 2 copies to 2 different drives. The likelihood, unless your office is unfortunately enveloped by fire or great floods, means that if you have a problem with one disk, you're probably not going to have a problem with the second disk, so you'll still be able to retrieve the file from another location if the first drive is having a problem.